Hello and welcome to the Play It Forward podcast presented by PeacePlayers, the podcast where we lift up voices and stories of people working in their communities and networks to promote peace and equity. My name is Chinny Nwagbo. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. I'm excited today because we have a pretty phenomenal guest. And so on today's show, we'll just get right to it. We'll be speaking about our special guest's origin stories, how the past influences our present, and what we can learn from all of that. And hopefully you'll be able to connect with that. But before we get started, I have to introduce my amazing co-host, Emmett. Emmett, it's all yours. Tell the people.
Thank you, Chinny. Thank you so much. Hello and welcome. Like Chinny said, my name's Emmett. I'm the podcast coordinator and her beautiful and incredibly tall co-host. And usually before we dive in, Arn, I start with just a quick icebreaker that I like to do to all the guests. Just ask a quick icebreaker to break the ice. And so today's icebreaker, it's very simple. It's when was the last time you did something for the first time?
When was the last time I did something for the first time?
Wow, that's a good one.
That's a good one. It may take me an hour to think about it. My memory is,
take your time.
My memory is gone. I barely remember what I did yesterday. I think my moving to Detroit, which was 6 years ago,
nice,
would be probably the biggest. It was probably the biggest decision, even though it's not within the last week or two, but it was a momentous decision for me, and I was at an age where I could have been. I was very comfortable in what I was doing, and I could have kept on as an agent for many years. We had it rolling, and I think looking back on that moment and making that decision was to do something. Everyone thought I was crazy. Giving up my practice and moving from Los Angeles to Detroit. All my friends couldn't understand what I was doing. And I think for me, it was scary. But I think what I appreciated as I look back on it was the ability to not care about how people judge you and look at you, and to say that, and no matter what age you are, life is full of challenges and opportunities, and it's when these moments come in your life to not assume or be afraid, to be able to grab something and say, I'm going to, that this is going to be a great opportunity and life-changing, and I'm going to make the best of it. Right. And not be afraid of what you're giving up and to do something like that. Yeah. I think that was the moment for me where in my career that I seized that moment of that opportunity. And it was really going to what we're going to talk about today, and why PeacePlayers was my sense that I could be part of something in a meaningful way. That's what I was hoping. And what I realized, I thought it would be about being part of a team, which is truly, right, that different experience and building a basketball team. But it really was the other things that came with it that to me were, that's been great, but it's been really the other things that I really didn't think about as much, right, was going into a new community, what it means to be a part of a community, and how the platform of a team allows you to do so much and contribute. For me, the lessons that I learned from that as I went through that process was that there's sometimes there's a lot of those moments in your life, right, but I think but there are sometimes those moments when it's a big moment, and this was for me. It completely altered my career and my life, my family's life. Right. But I think we can all look for those moments every day, to seize those opportunities. And that's what I think your question's about. It's trying to step back, and am I being fulfilled, and is it meaningful what I'm doing? Right. Is there a better path? And the more often that you can't find meaning and fulfillment in what you're doing.
Right.
And that it should lead you, and you should say, if now, not when. I got to make that change, and not be afraid.
Right.
I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
I'm going to figure it out how to make it successful in my life, and that's what this moment was for me.
Yeah.
Awesome. And for me to even be on those conversations and just see how you're using your, we're going to get right into it in the show, but Arn, that was a terrific answer, just how you use your platform. And you said we've got to find the answers, and ultimately you're using your platform and finding the answers in the doing, right? And connecting your purpose to the work that you do. And so, that was an awesome intro there. I almost don't even want to go into what we have next, because that was just so good. But yeah, thank you for sharing, Emmett. That was a great question.
Oh my God, he's right. We could have talked about that for a straight up hour.
I know. But let's just get right into it. And I want to properly introduce you. So, and we know now that you.
My name is, it's like Madonna. You don't need to introduce Madonna. And Arn is about. Just say, here's Arn.
All right. Well, I'm going to do what you ask, and well, welcome, Mr. Arn Tellem. I have to put the Philadelphia native in there because I know you are proud of that. So let me add that to that. And for all of you who don't know him, take some time to do some research and just figure it out, because this is going to be, as you heard from the first question, an amazing show. So I just want to kind of smoothly transition into, because we're already talking about the love of sports, and just tell us a little bit about, growing up and your experience and your true love for sports. We read a little bit about it, but we'd love to hear it from you, and just that origin.
Well, first off, when you said, I think being from Philadelphia and love of sports sort of goes hand in hand. You can't help but, if you're growing up in Philadelphia, it is a very passionate, it's a city with an attitude, or attitude, as they say in Philly. And sports has been a huge part of my life, from the time I was a child. Obviously, as a child, you hope you can play, and you hope you can play in college or professionally. And that was sort of my dreams, but I'm only, at the time I was 12 or 13, I was, basically 5'5" and, 150 pounds. And I realized that wasn't going anywhere. But it soon, my passions of sports was the things that when I realized I couldn't make the varsity teams at my school, though I did play lacrosse in high school, I was a fascinated one with games, table games. Right. So every Sunday I used to play chess as a young boy with my grandfather.
Very nice.
And that turned, when sports games came into play, they called the fantasy games now, but there were table games that I used to play, drafting baseball players and putting them on teams, making trades. Nice. And that really consumed me. And I did in a baseball league, and I did in a hockey league. And I played that for many, many years behind my childhood. What was the career that one could have in sports? And really, I really didn't know. And but my first interest was in writing. So when I didn't make the team in junior high in basketball, I decided to cover the team, write sports, and that turned in through high school. I wrote for the school newspaper, I wrote for the county newspaper, and I did fact checking for one of the Philadelphia, it was the Philadelphia Bulletin at the time, right. Which was one of the main papers in Philadelphia. And I thought that's where where I would go professionally. And it was, I went to the 1971 Philadelphia Sports Writers Dinner, and I was sitting next to Stan Hochman, who was a legendary writer for the Philadelphia Daily News, which had, it's like the New York Post for Philadelphia, which was a great columnist. They always had intense articles criticizing all the Philadelphia teams and how they were being run, and they were amazing sports writers. And he spent time with me. It was really an amazing moment. And he said, if you want to make a difference in sports and you want to do something, don't be a sports writer. Go to law school. if my parents had said that, I probably wouldn't have listened, but he said it, and it had a profound impact on me. And I think that was, again, we talk about these key moments in one's life where one looks at something or one has an encounter that makes you rethink something.
Right.
And that changed my whole orientation. And I think for me, getting the law degree, which I did after graduating Haverford, was and really there was sports agents at that time when I was coming out of law school were just really starting. It was the first sort of generation. Free agency had just come into being in the early 70s, and I was in law school in the mid 70s. And I remember there was another moment. There was an article on Jerry Kapstein, who you probably don't even know who he is, but he was one of the first baseball agents. And they did a profile on him, and Sports Illustrated did in the night, like when I was in college, I think it was my junior or senior year in college. And they talked about how he was maneuvering, moving one player from one team to another. And I said, wow, I read that article that weekend when that issue, the magazine would come out Friday nights. I would lie in bed and read the whole magazine. That's what I did from when I was a young boy. That would be my Friday night before I went to sleep, was reading the whole Sports Illustrated. I read the article over and over again that weekend, and I said, this is me. This is what I would like to do.
Right.
So when I went to law school, it was happening, and I found a firm that did it. Not that I was going to definitely do it. I was interested in politics and other things, but I found a law firm that did sports, and I fell into the opportunity. But it was all because of my love of sports. And for me, going to games was fun, but that wasn't really what I liked about sports. I always liked the story behind what was happening, why it was happening.
Right.
And it was more I was more intrigued in the decisions behind and the idea of representing athletes, fighting for their rights, fighting to give them a voice, being their advocate. That really was something that I could identify with, because they can say whatever they want. That's in the 70s and 80s when I started. It wasn't an equal, or it wasn't a level playing field for the players. All the rules were geared to protecting the ownership and the teams, and the players did not have equal bargaining rights. And so for me, it tapped into my the idea that you were fighting for something, you were on the right side, you were on the and helping them and to stand up for themselves, and that became my passion. I just loved it, and that's how I felt.
I'm curious because obviously a lot of kids have that moment where they go, oh, like I did, I'm not going to make the NBA, and it's a soul crushing day. But there is clearly avenues you can take to stay in that sports world, and I'm actually just fascinated with those first years for you as an agent, and sort of the hustle and grind that it must have been like to sort of get clients and stuff like that. Was there sort of, like you said, it was something you were drawn to, that you knew you wanted to do, but were there like personality traits that you had as a kid that like reflected into that hustle and grind, or was it something that was like trial by fire for you?
Also, I want to add that what's great about your story as well is that your story presents this idea that it doesn't stop at professional sports, right? That's not the end goal. Like, there are so many different things that our Peace Players that are listening to can do to stay involved with sports. And I just want to point that out. And
well,
that's
first
why
of all, not going to do at that point. Right now, there are, for a young person, there are way more opportunities in sports than there ever been before. And there are way more jobs than being a player. So whether it's working in a front office now, and really, it's amazing that in a front office today, there are people, whether it's the analytics of, I used to say that being a lawyer was very helpful because your degree you could use it in so many different ways. But now, teams have huge strategy departments, and it starts with analytics. And that really started in baseball as like the after effects of, Moneyball. But teams in every sport, football, baseball, hockey, even, world soccer, they have huge analytic departments analyzing players.
Right.
So now it's more engineers, coding, if you can do coding or learn coding, and looking at how statistics work. These are huge opportunities for young people to go into and working for professional sports teams.
Right.
And still, lawyers are always needed. There's always legal issues and business issues that overlap with law. But then there's selling. There's, whether it's in the business side, marketing, there's so many jobs and opportunities for people. There's the media side and technology that's exploding in sports.
Right.
How it relates to performance and analyzing performance and preventing injuries. Medical staffs, training staff. So there is jobs in all different areas. So I would encourage, if people are really interested in sports, there are many paths to entering into sports. Right. And the Pistons have 300 employees, and some teams have way more employees. But then you're talking about the leagues and the unions and ESPN and Comcast and all the other media companies and all the technology companies that are part of sports. So there's thousands and thousands of jobs and opportunities for people if you really want to be in sports.
Right.
So that's the first thing. It's really a lot. The opportunities for entry into the sports world is much greater than it was when I started.
Absolutely.
When I started out as an agent, going to the first question, as to what are the skills or what made, I was probably a reluctant agent. I was shy as a kid. I wasn't, I married the first girl that said yes to really would go out with me. I was very shy. But what I think one of the key jobs that I had is in a summer, and things that I learned is that you have to be able to sell. And when I was one summer or a couple summers, I worked at my father's department store in Philadelphia selling appliances, mainly air conditioners.
Right.
And it was an opportunity for me to force myself. How do you go out in a few minutes, make a connection with someone, all different types of people, all different backgrounds? How do you do that? How's the connection? And I remember someone saying, don't spend much time. You got to just move on. If you don't think they're real, go on. But for me, I sort of did it differently. I felt I had to do it my way. I wanted to make a connection,
right,
and find out who these people were and talk to them. And I think one of the things I learned, because I ended up selling more air conditioners than all the experienced people within a few weeks. And I think the senior people didn't really like it. But one thing I learned was that you have to make a connection with someone.
Absolutely.
And learn something about them. And that really was the key for me when I went out later. To me, it was everyone could sell all these big things, but a player can see through all that, the typical selling.
Right.
It was really, for me, it was very basic. I'm not the most exciting person. I told them quite often, I'm not going to be at your games. I'm not there. I'm here to do the work.
Right.
So for me, it was the reverse sell. I was going to sell substance, and I was going to sell the basic things, honesty and, character, integrity. Yeah. And I think with the players who gravitated to me and who bought into it, and I saw them this, I was all in for them. Right. I was all in. They could get me. I was going to be there to help them, regardless of the issue. I could be there. I was capable enough to handle any issue. Right. And that I was going to be there. And when they got me, it wasn't going to be half-assed. I was going to be all in. Right. But I think what the players wanted was someone that they knew that they could count on. Trust. Someone that they could communicate with, someone that they could talk to, someone that would treat them like family, someone would put their interests first. It wasn't all the glitzy salesmanship that a lot of my competitors did. It was just the basic things, and it was that light bulb that went on that first few weeks when I was trying to sell air conditioners and trying to like other people, and then realizing no, that's not how I would want to be spoken to. Right. I'm going to do it how I would want, how I felt comfortable and how I would have a conversation with someone. And I think that was sort of the key moment for me as a lesson when I was a child. The idea of character and being there and committed to someone was something that I heard constantly It's not how rich you are. It's not how powerful you are. It's not your character. That's going to carry you for your whole life. And that's what I would say to everyone here. When we go to hire someone, that's the first thing you ask: can you trust someone?
Right.
Are they going to be dedicated? Are they committed? Commitment. These are the things. And how resilient can you handle problems? Can you deal with failure? Can you deal with disappointment and overcome that and hang in there? These are the basic things that you look at for someone when you're going to have a partner or have someone that you're going to really have a real relationship with.
Right.
And it's you take it that everyone has some smarts, but it's not it's not a diploma or where you came from school. It's these basic character traits that you're looking for that are going to carry the day.
Right. Yeah, we like to call it like seeing people as people, just seeing the humanity in others. And that's exactly what you're talking about. And that for me is amazing because it speaks to me. I was a professional athlete for 11 years. Having someone that you can trust and just really believe. But I think the most important part is that they believe in you. And you can see that through their work ethic. And that is something that's invaluable. That's something that, I mean, for me, it's just amazing. It takes you to another level when you have someone who's in your corner that will speak on your behalf, that will uplift your voice, that will provide that platform so you are heard. And I think, Arn, that's what sets you apart. For me, it's all about human connection. And I'm sure Emmett can agree. It's all about how we see people, how we treat ourselves, and how we move in tandem in the world with those types of relationships and people. So.
And Chinny go, Lar. Go.
Just on that point, I think I always told the players I was going to be able to, that I had the ability and that I would always try my best to walk in their shoes.
Yeah.
I was going to put myself in their shoes to see the world as they saw it. And I was going to hopefully be able to understand, have empathy for them. And really in the beginning, I told them, I mean, that this is a relationship. You can leave whenever you want. If you're not happy, fine. And in the beginning, I didn't even have, it wasn't until later when the union forced us to have contracts. I didn't even have contracts with my players. All these agencies try to tie them up, lock them up. I said, look, I have no contract. I'm here based on my work for what I do for you.
Yeah.
You're free to leave anytime. They did, and no one did leave.
Yeah. It sounds like,
that
you have these core values and you're falling in love with the process. Also, you have to have both of those two things in order to be successful. Because it sounds like early on, it was just, you were working and you enjoyed the work as well. And that seeing people as people, I was going to say, is a great smooth transition to what I'm most fascinated with in talking about the Detroit Pistons. And so specifically, most people who know basketball or have just a baseline understanding of basketball, when you say the Detroit Pistons, they think of two things: the bad boy Pistons in the late 80s, early 90s, and then the Malice in the Palace. And for those listeners, obviously, who don't know what I'm referring to by the Malice in the Palace, let me paint the scene for you real quick. Chinny, let me go off for a second. So in the infamous night of, I think it was November 19th, 2004.
That's right.
The Indiana Pacers are at the Detroit Pistons in the Palace. Ron Artest, the Pacers' best small forward, gets into a small altercation with center Ben Wallace with about 48 seconds left. And Arn, please interrupt if I'm getting any of these details wrong also. They get into a small altercation. The refs break it up. Ron is sitting at the scorer's table trying to cool off. A fan ends up throwing a beverage that hits Ron Artest in the head. Ron Artest then loses it, jumps into the stands, and begins throwing punches at that fan. Multiple other fans, players and other fans get involved. So much so that this lasts for several minutes until the refs eventually just call the game completely. And oh yeah, by the way, this is all being nationally televised while this is happening. In that moment, no one had ever seen anything like that to that degree. And I think, there have been fan and player altercations, but not to that degree ever since. And so, Arn, in your words, you're in the agency world, obviously at that time. You've pretty much solidified yourself. You have this huge clientele. What was that like for you, witnessing that both as an agent and then also as just a fan of the game in general?
Well, I had one of the players, Jermaine O'Neal, who was disciplined, and we challenged the discipline. You know, he threw a punch at the end as a fan was coming at him and at his bench. So that's an area of the court when fans enter the court, they're violating sort of a safe space for the players. And look, it's been highlighted again this year in the playoffs with I know Russell Westbrook, and there's been other instances where fans have tried to, ill-advisedly, improperly. But that's the state of the world we live in, is that fans, and clearly, easy to say, players shouldn't overreact. It's in the heat of the game, and when they enter a certain space of theirs where they think they're safe, and all of a sudden they feel threatened, they're going to defend themselves.
Right.
And so it's, I feel for the players, and I think one of the things, the basic thing is that there has to be proper security, so that that there is, and there really wasn't then. I don't think they ever anticipated these kinds of moments like they do now. There's probably better security now that around the court to protect the players. So that's the most basic thing. Clearly, yes, players have a responsibility to be able to not go into the stands to engage. They shouldn't. Mm-hmm. They should step away. They should not. But that's easier said than done when you feel threatened or someone is coming at you or throwing things at you. It's again easier said than done. But you're right. You should. Hopefully, the players know. Let others intercede for you. Let security take the place. Let them get rid of the fans. Let them eject them. Right. You shouldn't have to do this. But I think on the Indiana moment, it was bedlam because the fans just weren't limited to their seats. They came into it's like coming into your house. Mm-hmm. They're on the court now, and that's what happened with Jermaine. They're on the court. They're going after players, and now and Jermaine just reacted. Right. And thank God he slipped and he slid as he connected with the guy, because had he just ran over and punched him, it would have been probably much worse for the individual who was out there trying to to take on some of the players. Right. It was an amazing experience because we had a hearing, a disciplinary hearing. I remember calling David Stern that Sunday before the penalties came out, and I was trying to plead the case for Jermaine, and David was so upset, saying that players can't do this and that he had no choice, but he was going to come down hard on everyone. And so he had I forget how many players, but it was like 4 or 5 players that got, penalties. I remember when we went to the hearing in New York, and there was in this boardroom, I forget the law firm, I'm not sure if it was the league's law, must have been the league's law firm, it may have been the players union's law firm, but the boardroom was like a whole city block in New York. It was the biggest boardroom I ever saw. There must have been probably 30 to 40 attorneys in the room representing all the players, the league, and all the union. It was an incredible amount of attorneys. I've never seen this many attorneys in one room, in one space. And we went through this hearing. Now, Jermaine, interestingly enough, was the only player that had his penalty reduced. So nice. we were able to get his penalty reduced, and the others were upheld. Wow. And they were severe penalties. And and I get David Stern's perspective that you have to set a minimum code, no matter how no matter what happens with the fans, you have to step away. Right. I think what happened with Jermaine was that they recognized that his penalty was I think why they reduced it was because where our test was in the stands and others went into the stands, Jermaine's penalty was on the court. Right. And they do that as the safe zone for the players. Gotcha. When someone comes on the court, they saw that this was it wasn't intentional. Right. It was a reaction. They reduced it. It wasn't meditated. Right. But to me, it gets back to this core thing that the players, there's a lot of crazy people out there.
Yes.
And, that want to become involved in the game and in the story, and they feel they're taking on the cause of their city or whatever motivates them.
Right.
But the league has to do protecting the players, their health, their welfare is a critical issue for the league. Right. And they have to do the very best job to protect the players. And 100%. The league, I think, has done. I think the league, by and large, does it. I think this again, these latest incidents heighten again that you need the perimeter protected and enough security that they can get there very quickly to intercede in these moments, so that the player who's thinking self-defense, and he's already, when you're playing out there in the court, you're like Russell Westbrook, Russell Westbrook. He only knows one way. He plays at 100% all the time.
100%,
So for him to separate and calm down and say, I need help is a hard thing to do when you're already engaged at that level, because you're already at, he's talk about one of the fiercest competitors. And but that's why you need people to help them to jump in immediately. Yeah. But you're right. Intellectually, yes. The players should step back.
Yes.
Let others get involved and do it. But you don't always have that luxury of time when you're alone walking off the court, when someone's in your face and screaming or throwing things at you, or throwing, a drink at you. You don't always have that time where there's someone to get someone. Oh, where's security? Can I get
right.
It's not as easy as you think. So
exactly,
it's a tough issue, but it's again, it's my player person, having been with so many players and seen these moments. And look, Jermaine O'Neal is one of the nicest guys. He wouldn't hurt a fly off the court, and he knows when he's out there in public, he'll turn the other cheek and walk away.
Absolutely, because you have to.
That moment where that something snapped. When you see people on the court running at you, it's how you protect yourself. It's a whole different ball game.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of Jackie Robinson and how he integrated baseball. Not the same time, a little bit different, but the idea that, fans, they purchase a ticket and they automatically believe that they can, I'm just seeing this from the player's perspective. I purchased a ticket, therefore I have the right to do whatever I want to do.
Yeah.
And if that means your safety is in jeopardy, doesn't matter. I purchased my ticket. Shut up and play. And so it's that whole entire concept. And like you said, Arn, as a player, even myself, when you're passionate and you're in the heat of the game and the first thing you think is, oh my God, protect yourself. Someone's coming into this place that's supposed to be the safe haven, mayday, so I'm there with you.
No, look, Jackie Robinson is like, everyone, what he went through,
different, completely
and
different.
He was the only player, black player at that time. And what he went through is, and he was coached and advised, and he sort of knew that the weight of everyone was on his shoulders,
right? And
how he acted and how he responded, could jeopardize the opportunity for others,
right?
And so I'm sure there were plenty of moments where he wanted to level someone or take someone out, and he turned the cheek,
the other cheek,
and just said, I'll deal with it, and so. But he faced, extraordinary challenges. It's a tough thing. It's a really hard thing to do when your physical security is threatened. And how you react. So
Arn, I want to ask you one more thing before we do a quick little break, an intermission, if you will. It's Jackie Robinson, Ernie Davis. There's people who obviously there's a line between the fan player interaction where it's a rivalry versus more of a racial injustice component to it,
right.
Or just more of a racial undertone. And I'm the malice in the palace is one thing, but then there's instances like you said in the playoffs with Russell Westbrook, or also recently with the US men's and versus Mexico soccer game. Mexican fans were throwing bottles at a U.S. men's player and chanting, homophobic slurs and stuff like that. And so it's where is that line shift from a player fan rivalry to something a little bit more serious. And you know, you becoming a vice chairman of PSNE, did you like, where do you identify that line to be?
Well, I think the issue of I guess when it comes to physical threats to a player, it's still the physical threat. I mean, you do distinguish what for fans in an arena to be or a stadium, and how you treat fans using hate speech as a chant.
Right.
What you will permit that's a whole nother issue.
Yeah.
And fans just booing players or being loud is so there is a to me a big distinction on what whether you cannot tolerate hate speech at a sporting event.
Absolutely.
You can't and look at what goes on in Europe and maybe in Mexico, but clearly I know more with European soccer what's happened in the past. That those lines have been crossed many times. And I don't believe things have been done.
We've talked about a lot.
No, but I think teams have the right to enforce their rules. This is a private setting, and they can limit. They can, if people are making, if there are, and I wouldn't even call them fans, because to me this is for when someone starts to bring in hate speech into a public setting. But this is to me, there are limits, and you can and you should aggressively enforce those limits on speech, that type of speech.
Definitely. And I imagine it's hard to put yourself in those shoes, because there's hate speech, like you said, there's a fine line, but from a player's perspective, African-American players' perspective, Black guys' perspective, some things seem to be more racially charged than others, and you can take things personally in a different way. And it's really hard. I think the most important thing is just the relationships that you've built, right? And being able to have that conversation with the players to ensure that they feel, they're heard and they're saved and they're respected. Because these are people at the end of the day. They're playing a sport, but they, like you said, Arn, this is a relationship. These are people who are stretch far beyond the court. So
no, and they have the same emotions and
absolutely
that we all do,
right.
and things and they're not they may be superhuman as athletes, but we all have our we can be strong people,
right?
But when it comes to whether it's hate speech or other issues,
it's different.
There's we all are going to, these are things that go right to the core and hurt us.
Right, deeply rooted.
And the pain and anguish that a Black player feels is just, it's not just because he's a player doesn't mean it's any less.
Right,
he feels them, and sometimes I think some of the, a lot of athletes feel it may be, they feel it also, it intensifies the feeling because they feel that they are out there speaking for others, and that and how they react is a guidepost for their community, and and they feel that responsibility. So it is a very difficult issue, but I believe what's impressed me so much, because I grew up in the 60s, and whether it was Muhammad Ali or Bill Russell, there was, Jim Brown, there were great Black athletes who spoke up on issues. Kareem, obviously another one. And then you went through a period where where athletes sort of weren't as outspoken, even though there was many significant issues.
Right.
But what's impressed me is with this generation of players over the last few years, whether you see LeBron or Chris Paul or the women in the WNBA,
absolutely,
a lot of NFL players, that their feeling is, that they're using their platform. I think they've done it in a really smart way. I think they've been courageous. I salute them. I think they really have really added to the discussion.
Yeah.
And
100%.
and contributed in a significant way. So, and I think what they're doing and to me, I think they should do it. I think they should use their platform. I think
right.
So I applaud them. I think this has been, as you look back on this past few years, or the past couple of years, there's been so many, there's been so much sadness and heartbreak. But when you look at some of the positive things that have happened, the fact that the players have found their voice and are using it in a constructive way,
right,
and speaking out on issues that are important to their community, I think has been, with all the bad, this is one of the good,
right,
and I think it's one of the positive outcomes. And again, going back to our discussions with PeacePlayers that they've been involved with in Detroit, our players have been on these calls, our coaching staff, they participate, they want to participate. They're looking for outlets to communicate and discuss these issues. And PeacePlayers has been a huge part of it for us in providing sort of a constructive way to bring disparate people and organizations together in our community and have these powerful discussions where you hope constructive action can result from these conversations. And that's what I think is so important. And it's really been, I think, meaningful to me to see our players, participate and want to participate and really getting something out of this experience.
Absolutely.
And so I think that's been a real positive.
Very phenomenal. Those have been great. So
Chinny, do you know what time it is?
Yes, I do. I know what time it is. It is the lightning round time. Arn, this is going to be fun and amazing. And it's just a lightning round. And what we're going to do is we're going to give you actually a lot of questions, rapid fire. You have like 3 seconds max to think about the questions. They're fun and light, and we are excited just to hear what you share with us. Emmett is going to kick us off with, look at him cracking his neck.
Don't worry. We'll judge you. We'll judge you heavily with all of your answers, so don't worry.
So we're excited. 3 seconds max.
All right, 3 seconds on the clock for each question. Here we go.
Yes, here we go.
All right, what was the last thing that made you smile?
Well, I just saw my grandson yesterday,
awesome.
and there was nothing better than that. He just turned 3, and
so nice.
Every morning I smile when I get my coffee. That was probably really the last thing. But yesterday I had a great moment with my grandson, and I realized
cup of coffee and grandson. That sounds good.
Yeah,
very nice.
Favorite time of the day?
My favorite time of the day is actually the morning when I get up, and especially out here, because I usually go for a walk in the morning. Is the first thing, just to gather my thoughts, have my coffee, go for a quick walk, and it just gets me in the right mode going forward.
Perfect. Nice. Favorite meal of the day?
Favorite meal of the day depends what city I'm in, but if it's Philadelphia, it's probably lunch, because whether I get a cheesesteak or a hoagie.
Yum.
But typically in Detroit, my favorite meal is breakfast. I like
okay.
What about Washington D.C.? Just kidding.
Nothing compares to Philadelphia. Don't get me wrong.
Okay.
Sweet or salty food?
Oh, definitely salty. I'm a salt fanatic.
Okay, scuba diving or skydiving?
I'm a swimmer, so scuba diving.
Favorite sport?
Yeah, this is what I want to hear. Favorite sport?
My favorite sport now is by far is golf. I'm obsessed with golf.
Oh, really?
Oh,
nice.
Okay.
I took it up late in life, but I love it.
Very cool.
Okay. Favorite place in the world to travel?
Italy.
Ooh.
Nice.
Name a person who inspires you.
Well, 3 seconds. Well, that's a tough one. There's so many, but I would say actually for me, it would be my grandparents, my grandfathers.
Very nice.
Perfect. Last thing you laughed at.
I'd like to hear this.
Laughter is a huge. Well, I clearly laughed with my grandson because he's such a funny kid, but I think laughing is even when I'm sad, it's or have these moments. I would say the last thing I laughed at was with you, with both of you. But
awesome.
But I think you got to find humor in everything. So
absolutely.
Last book you read.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Actually, the last book that I read was The World According to Fannie Davis. It was about black woman in Detroit who was a numbers, who had her own, who ran numbers and as a way of taking care of her family. And
Chinny, are we writing this down?
I am.
Okay,
I
good,
absolutely
good.
am.
So good. We'll keep it. Last movie you watched.
Last movie I watched, well, my wife and I, it's really not, I don't know if it's a movie, but we've watched, I guess, Mayor of Easttown, given the Philly.
Yeah.
We were totally addicted into Mayor of Easttown, and Kate Winslet had a terrific Philly accent. So, so my hat's off to her. And I loved all the Wawa references and all the true crime series on HBO Max. Check it out. It's very good. Okay.
Name one thing you want to leave the world with after you're gone. It's a little deep, not so light anymore.
Yeah. He's already doing it.
Yeah.
Well,
true.
I hope
relationships and connections.
I hope, well, hopefully, whether it's from my family or from the people I've interacted with, especially the players that I represented, is making a difference in their life for the better. And clearly, for me in Detroit, it's also the same thing. Hopefully, when believe me, it's about winning in the end. I hope we're going to, I think we're on our way to turning the team around. We're doing it the right way now. We're building with draft picks and young players. And so clearly, I think a great capstone of my career would be one to get Detroit back to where it should be. It's one of the elite franchises in NBA history, and having a winning franchise, but also for me, also to hopefully, when my time is done in Detroit, that we made a real difference in the community. And my goal was, when I came there, that we would be among them, we would be the most socially responsible franchise.
Exactly.
And my hope is that that's how we'll be viewed.
Save it or spend it.
Yeah, save it or spend it.
I was taught to save it, but I do like spending it.
Same.
Especially as I get older, I realize, what am I saving it for? So let's might as well spend it.
Right.
Take out or dine in.
I'm much more, through the pandemic, it's been takeout. The experience of, if my wife is cooking or we're cooking, I'd much rather eat in. But if we're taking out to take in, the food is better when you're eating in. So I'd rather eat at a restaurant than taking it out.
All right, we got two more. Country or city life?
We already know this answer.
I'm a city kid.
Exactly.
I'm a city kid.
Exactly.
We moved, that was my first thing at the Pistons. I'll say the first thing was at the Pistons. The first day I showed up when we were at the Palace, I had never seen the Palace during the day. I'd only been there at night, and it was usually, so when I pulled up that first day for work out in Auburn Hills, and I saw this vast empty parking lot, nothing around it, I said in my mind, there is no way, if I'm staying here, that we're not moving downtown. We have to be part of the city. We have to be part of the action. So that was my mindset.
All right, and the last one takeaway you want the listener to remember from today.
No, I think it's what we start. I think it was your first question. It's really what we do with our lives. And my point of, if not now, when one is to look at your life, and if you're really not finding meaning or fulfillment, and that sense is with you, more than one day, of 2 days or 3 days or 4 days in a row, and to not be afraid, to look for, and to me, to be able to accept a challenge and to be able to go with it. And as I said, it's not about pursuing happiness. It's about being willing to, what are you willing to struggle for?
Right.
What are you willing to fight for? And
right.
And happiness will come from that. That happiness is something that is not that you pursue. It's what ensues from what you love and what you're doing. Mm-hmm. But it's really that sense of struggle. What are we willing to fight for and really commit ourselves to? Right. And not to be afraid for those challenges, and to look for those opportunities. Yeah. And that's what gives your life meaning, mm-hmm. and gives you the sense of fulfillment. Yeah.
Goodness. And I want to take it a step further and just say, because this is what I've gotten from that, everything you just said, and ensuring that you're doing something that serves something greater than yourself. And that's what you do.
For sure. That goes with, and that to me has been always what it's been about. It's not about me, it's about the work. And it's not, and believe me, the one thing I will say, because it's not about just the absolute pursuit of money. It's not that has so little to do with it. Yep. I never made a decision based on that, ever. Exactly. And all the things that have turned out right for me in my career and things that I've done, it's always been about the job, the work, the challenge, and what I can do and the impact I'm going to have, and the people I'm going to work with and the people I'm going to meet and interact with. All that other stuff is, crap. Right. And that's really, and you're right. It's really the impact that we have on others that's going to, I think Jackie Robinson said, and that one of his most famous quotes, "Our lives are meaningless except in the impact it has on others." There you go. And that's really, that may be the best way to end it. It's really, and I think he, to me, is, we still think of him, his legacy is, what he contributed will always stand the test of time, and he did it in the greatest way possible. But I think that quote resonates for everyone. Yeah, yeah. And because that was so powerful and amazing, you're right, Arn. I think that's essentially it. That's what this whole conversation is. That's what life's about. That's what we're all trying to figure out and do in a great and just amazing way. And I think you're right. I think that was the best place to kind of like just bring this all in. But we appreciate this has been awesome. Emmett, your thoughts?
That was the most deep and existentially moving lightning round I've ever done. Go there.
I thought you'd be asking me my favorite cheesesteak place.
No, I love it. This is what it's all about, really.
Yeah. And we have this thing where we have a drop the mic moment, and I want to say this from everything you've said. We all know the importance of power. There's power for good, and there's power for bad. And we know that sports has that same power. And what you've done essentially is you've taken the power, the power for good in sports, and utilize it and created a platform where everyone's voice is lifted, where we're not just serving the player, but you are serving the community. You are serving and it's just, it's amazing. It speaks to the kid who thinks that sports ends at professional sports. It speaks to the fan who thinks that they're just, in the stands and they're not important. It speaks to the player who wants to ensure that they're more than just basketball. They're more than just the game. And for me, that's the drop the mic moment. You're using the power of sports for good, and serving something greater than yourself. And that's it. So we appreciate I like to say this, thebomb.com. It's been
thanks. But I mean, and I want to say just we love our relationship, partnership with PeacePlayers. Yeah. It's been to me, one of the great relationships that I've had, starting with one of my first trips to to Northern Ireland, being in Israel together, and obviously now bringing, one of my goals when I came to the Pistons was to try to get PeacePlayers to come to Detroit and use the same strategies and deploy them in domestically in our in a city that needs to me a lot of help as far as bringing people together and giving young people opportunities and bringing our community together, and our program continues to grow, and the people it touches continue to grow, and that is one of the things that I am very proud about, as that you can make a difference. May not be huge and may not be publicized, but in small ways we can make a real difference in our community, and that's what we're doing together. And it's been really a wonderful partnership that I've had with everyone there for so many years, and that we're going to continue to going forward.
And it's a ripple effect, right? Because I'm in Baltimore, and I'm right with the Pistons community conversations, and we have a lot of people that are all over. So it may sound small, but this small thing is a ripple effect, and it connects people all over the world. And it's
but that's how change happens. It is those ripples.
Absolutely.
It is ripples. It's not like a monumental thing that just happens once, but it's change is a series of ripples that and if we can just, and by causing some ripples, that is significant.
We got to get a day in the life of. We got to come and shadow you and just be.
I feel like I've been saying.
I like to show up Detroit, so I have the same pride in Detroit now that I had for Philadelphia, and there are a lot of similarities between the two cities. Anytime.
Oh God! I feel like I've been just constantly doing slam poetry noises, like the and the like the snaps. It's just like so many great things have been said so far.
We appreciate you. Thank you so much for being on the show. You're phenomenal and amazing.
So I enjoyed it, and hopefully we'll do it again sometime.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and Arn, quickly before you go, is there any places you wanna, any plugs you want to say, any places we should follow you if people want to learn more about what you're up to, any conversations that you want people to know about?
I think you can follow us probably through the Pistons website, but and that really does a good job of telling everything what we're doing, telling everyone what we're doing. But I think the big moment that I need everyone to think positive about is the NBA draft lottery. Actually, I think it's a week from today. It's a week from today. It's June 22nd. So I need both of you and all the listeners.
We got you.
Yeah, we have our fingers crossed. We're ready.
We need good thoughts. Think positively.
Good juju is coming your
way.
Good
juju. I was gonna say the same. Right.
The Pistons have never had good luck in the lottery. This hopefully will be our first year.
Things are changing. All it
takes is one. All it takes is one.
Ripple effect. So
right.
Thank you so much.
Hopefully the power of this conversation will carry forward.
Absolutely.
Oh, I'm sure it will. I'm sure.
And if it will, I'm going to give you credit. So.
Oh yes. That's why we wanted you on the call. You figured it out.
Basically, that's the real reason here. But no, thank you so much for being on the show. We appreciate it.
Thank you. We really do.
And this has been phenomenal.
All right, I enjoyed it.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care or be well.
Thank you. You as well. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. And that's it for today's episode. Thank you all for listening and joining in on this amazing journey. If you like what you heard, we encourage you to like and subscribe. We've got many more conversations and stories to share in the coming weeks. And please share with a friend. That's the biggest thing here. We're building a community. Emmett, over to you.
Oh my God. Wow. I might need to lie down after that. My mind is literally blown.
I know.
Thank you, Chinny. And I think you can also find us and learn more about PeacePlayers by visiting our website and following us on social media, mostly at PeacePlayers International on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, MySpace. Just kidding. Nobody uses MySpace anymore. And that's it. I think that's it. I'm going to go lie down now, I think.